Yikes. Are you guys reading this? Anyway, welcome to the Heavy Leather Horror Show, Home Edition, Quarantine, Week, I don't know, 7, 8, whatever it is. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Ken, and if you and I are here together, that can only mean one thing. It's time for Witch Watch.
There's a white witch, there's a black witch, baby, which is a witch, which is a witch. There's a white witch, there's a black witch, baby, which is a witch, which is a witch.
Alright, so you know how we do it by now. Every week, I review a witch movie for you. Will it have a hot witch, or will it have a not witch? Let's find out together. This week's film was recommended to me by my own partner in crime, Kelly Kapow, who saw it as a child and found it very frightening. Confused me as to how she saw it as a child and when it frightened her, since it was released in 1988. But obviously not all of us were 19 years old in 1988. The movie I'm talking about, of course, is Witchery, aka Witchcraft, aka La Casa 4. Witchery was shot in the US, but it is an Italian production. Sometimes they would come over here, shoot in the US for a little production value. It was produced by the legendary Joe D'Amato, the man behind such sleaze epics as Porno Holocaust, Erotic Nights of the Living Dead, and perhaps most infamously Anthropophagus, pronounce it as you will, the motion picture, well, where the guy ate his own guts. Now, personally, I find many of Joe D'Amato's productions kind of repulsive, but he certainly has many, many fans, so you got to give it to him. This film was supposed to be directed by Luigi Cozzi, the man who directed the awesome Star Wars ripoff Star Crash, starring Carolyn Monroe, but he dropped out. Some sort of creative differences. And so the film was actually directed by first-time director, let me get his name right, if I may, Fabrizio Llorente. It's a fun name to say. Let's all do it again together. Fabrizio Llorente, who went straight to TV right after this, except for one more time. He made another motion picture with Joe D'Amato, 1993's creature feature, The Crawlers, which I haven't seen, but honestly, the trailer looks awful enough that it might be fun to watch. Witchery. It stars Linda Blair and David Hasselhoff, and that's really all you need to sell it. Neither of those actors need any introduction. And it certainly worked for me. Sure, I'll watch it. Linda Blair, David Hasselhoff, I'm in. Linda Blair, most well known obviously for The Exorcist, but my favorite role of hers will always be Roller Boogie. And David Hasselhoff, he's the guy eating the cheeseburger on YouTube. All right, let's get to it. In the opening scene, a pregnant woman is seen running through a house, being chased by what looks like angry pilgrims. This is a little confusing because she has 80s hair and a JCPenney nightgown. She crashes through the window, falls to her death, just as Linda Blair wakes up. And it turns out, everybody, that Linda Blair is the pregnant lady in the JCPenney nightgown. Next day, she's walking down the street, minding her own business, when she sees a weird old lady in black. At the same time, the construction site in front of her, one of the steel girders lets loose, and it comes crashing to the ground, nearly hitting her. That lady in black is Hildegard Neff, who I would like to talk about for a moment, if I may. Hildegard was a German actress and singer who started her career during the rise of the Third Reich. She actually dated a Nazi at the time and ended up in a Russian prison camp. It's a really long story. The point is that she eventually became a singer, and that's where I initially discovered her about 15 years ago on a compilation called German Funk Fever, Volume 1, which I highly recommend. It's a really great compilation. And she sings in this really drowsy way with a super thick accent, and it's awesome. One of these days, I would like you to listen to her magnum opus, From Here On It Got Rough, which is her autobiography wrapped up in a song, and it's incredible. Hildegard Neff is fantastic.
came to the world on a cold winter's day. Sneezed 3 times, it must have been hay. My father was livid, he wanted a son. I took a look round and said to the nun, from here on it gets rough.
In the interest of brevity, let me explain what's happening in this movie. So the house that Linda Blair was dreaming about is actually an abandoned hotel that her mom wants to buy. It's 50 miles away from Boston on a private island. The island scenes were actually shot in Cohasset, which means nothing to most people. But if you're a local, like I am, that's kind of interesting. So mom, Linda Blair, her little brother, her dad, a hot architect, and the real estate agent all go to the abandoned hotel to check it out. Also there, the lady in black. Why? We don't know yet. What happens is the lady in black kills the sea captain who brings them there, trapping them on the island with her. The real estate guy explains that the hotel was once owned by an eccentric aging German actress, which of course would be Neff, and that the island was known for years, legends around the island and the hotel. People would see witch lights. They would call them witch lights, which are lights that they saw in an apparently abandoned and empty hotel. So rumors had been swirling around for many years about this place, which it would have been nice if he mentioned any of that, right? Before he sold it to the lady who bought it, by the way, sight unseen. Don't do that. That's crazy. Anyway, this would all suggest some Scooby-Doo shit. But what happens is that Linda Blair gets sucked into the bathtub briefly and ends up in hell where homeless people are eating babies. It's not as exciting as it sounds, but that's what happens. So that suggests that maybe something supernatural is going on. But anyway, let me say something about this film. It's supposed to take place, around Boston. And I do believe that there are some exterior shots of Boston in the beginning. It looks like a Beacon Hill for a sec there. Again, what do you care? But it's interesting to locals. Anyway, because it's supposed to take place here, the actors go in and out of Boston accents. It's like they forget that they're supposed to do Boston accents. Some of them are worse than others. What I thought that was particularly bad, of course he's a kid, but still, was Linda Blair's little brother. This is really, it's funny. Let's check out her little brother's Boston accent.
She told me she lived here for years and years, but I met her yesterday in the park.
What did she look like?
Pretty old and dressed in black. Look, there she is, the woman in black.
So, as you might guess, in a movie like this, the lady in black starts killing people in various ways. Like mom gets stuffed into the fireplace, and the hot architect gets speared by a swordfish sculpture. Oh yeah, the Hoff. Where does the Hoff come in? Well, he's a photographer, and he snuck into the hotel with this really bad actress, Leslie Cumming, who only made one other film, Zombie 5, Killing Birds. Have you ever seen that? Holy smokes. She's an occult writer. He's a photographer. They're making a book about the so-called witch lights. They didn't have any, they weren't allowed to be in there, but they showed up anyway. So they're skulking around the hotel, and then they run into everybody else. And she's really the only one that knows exactly what's going on here. And by the way, it is great watching her read her lines. That's probably the highlight of the whole film.
Lust from the harlot. Fruit of the woman in labor. The blood of a virgin. These are all elements of witchcraft. There's a common denominator in all the mystery cults. Blood of a virgin.
By the way, she was the virgin until earlier in the movie she got raped by a demon. Whole scene's pretty gross, so I'm not going to show it. But check out this scene of Linda Blair's dad getting the old voodoo doll treatment. It's pretty good. The climax is pretty stupid. However, I can see why they used Linda Blair for it, because she is temporarily possessed in one of the scenes. Also, I really like Leslie Cummings' face in the final shot. Okay, to sum things up, no hot witch. That's a huge disappointment. There's also no explanation for anything that happened. You don't know, for example, what the witch lights really were. You don't really get why an elderly German actress who just wants to live alone in an abandoned hotel would go through all this trouble. You're not really sure what the supernatural connection is. It's such a mishmash of different witchcraft and Satanism and voodoo. Was Satan really involved in any of this? Was it all hallucination? We don't really know. I kind of feel like they just got lazy with the script, or perhaps the Italian to English translation didn't work out. I don't know, but it's honestly one of the worst movies I've seen in quite a while, which for me is really saying something. However, I don't really regret seeing it either, because it verges. It's right on the line of being so bad it's good. And in fact, if I keep talking about it, I'm probably going to end up liking it more, so I'm going to stop. However, I will say this: if you like terrible Italian horror movies, and a lot of people do, this is definitely one of those. Witchery, 1988. By the way, this should not be confused with the awesome thrash metal band that has the three-fingered salute. That Witchery is way better than this movie. All right, everybody, that's it for this week. We'll see you next time. Until then, hail Satan, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time on Witch Watch.